This is Family Electric Ghost. We're live on the air with Gaylen Wilson for the first time. We're going to talk about forced reinventions. Your life has not been one comeback, and so we're going to get into that. But I want to welcome you to the Family Electric Ghost podcast. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. It's such a privilege to be here.
Well, it's fun to talk to people live, and we're live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Kick. And before we get to the heart of your story, I always ask every guest a couple questions, like standard
Okay.
that I've been doing. Is like, what motivates you, and why do you do what you do?
Right now, my motivation is to pay the blessing from my heart transplant forward and
Mm-hmm.
help other people find the joy that I have.
That's cool. Well, it's good to pay it forward because
Mhm.
this they kind of put it out there. I'm a like when I was 28, I'm 58, and stage 3 cancer, a sarcoma, and I went through max radiation, 3 surgeries. After I came out of that, it was almost like I got reborn
Mhm.
because I was like only 28, and then I got this thing where I'm like, oh, maybe I won't be here, and
Yeah.
so it changed my direction in life, and I decided like I'm not going to be scared of things because I actually beat cancer. It's like when you beat something like that, it
Mhm.
changes your mind set. Sometimes it's actually the best thing that ever happened to you.
Yeah.
you
Well,
know.
and I would not be here if it weren't for all the repeated failures you're about to hear about.
hmm Yeah, I think you learn like you have to. You
Mhm.
kind of like in IT, we call it failing upward.
Mhm.
Like we can't get anything done unless we break some eggs, right? We know that we go through multiple iterations, like 1,000 versions, and version 1001 is the one that works. And the whole step of getting there, you might feel like you failed, but it's like you needed to do
Mhm.
that to get where you
Yeah.
end up. You know what I mean? So you
Yeah.
can kind of maybe you want to start with like where did it start? Like what were like repeated reinventions for you, resilience, identity, and purpose? Like how
Okay.
you want to maybe frame that for the audience.
Okay. Well, first of all, I was married at 20, had 4 kids by the time I was 26. So I kind of created some of my own challenges there.
Mm-hmm.
and and so I was very driven, very uh, perfectionist. I started farming at 23 years old, and and so I was making better money than the average 20 something year old in rural Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
And so things went along great for a few years, and then 2 of my last 3 years were drought years, so I
Um,
didn't get a crop, and so that caused a farm bankruptcy. And the first year was bad. I kind of got through it and got the second year, and then the third year did me in.
just wipe you out.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
and
pain.
so
Like the natural like process for that is hard to get through, I guess.
yeah, well, yeah, because I was kind of a perfectionist, and even though this wasn't my fault, my 30-year-old self internalized it as my
Yeah.
fault. And
Well, like
I,
the way society is, it makes you feel like if you're not successful, it's like you.
mhm.
But
and
our
so
society is
yeah,
structured that.
yeah, and so um, I did what every good cowboy does and stuffed it because
Oh
I
yeah, you
had
pushed it down.
zero tools to deal with it with, and so so then I worked some minimum wage jobs around. We live in a little town in southeast Colorado, and I'd really never trained for anything other than I'd been taking some college courses. Um, but so I eventually went to the city to make my fortune. Went to
Mhm.
Denver, uh, and I actually got a job as a stockbroker.
Oh wow, you got in that. So you end up getting your license and everything.
Yeah, I passed the Series 7 license on the first go round
Well, that's
uh,
cool.
with 92%, which is like
But not going to
crazy.
college, you're right on. Like there are guys coming out of college that must take that 3, 4, or 5 times.
Yeah, yeah, and well, a lot of people don't give farmers the credit that they're due, is
hmm
because you have to be a businessman to be a farmer, because you have to learn it all, dealing with the banks and doing your
Yeah, there's a lot
taxes.
of you got a lot of vendors you got to deal with. I mean, you got a
Mhm.
lot of inputs and outputs that you got to understand.
hmm And so I was really doing quite well with the stockbroker because I'm kind of a personable guy,
Mhm.
and the New Yorkers seem to really love my laid back Southeast Colorado accent and and attitude, and so I walked into work. I'd been selling this little dental HMO out of California called Dental Health of America.
Mhm.
I had $3,000 of my mother's money in it, and every one of my clients had it. And I walked into work one Monday morning, mid-January, and they said Dental Health America was lying to us on their financials. They're filed Chapter 7. They're gone.
Oh, oh, that's terrible.
And so now this was just like 3 years after
Bankruptcy.
the bankruptcy, and so now here's the second disaster that's again not my fault, but none of my clients would talk to me. My mother barely talked to me.
Yeah, it's hard.
And so I can name that as the exact day that I crawled into a vodka bottle for 10 years
Oh, so
because
that's what kind of precipitated. Yeah, I mean, you got hit like hard, like three times.
yeah. And so that was not the way to do it, but that was the only way I knew to do it. I'm not a huge Oprah fan, but something she said one time years ago, and I think she got it from Dr. Phil, and that you do what you do because you knew what you do. When you know better, you do better.
You can only do what if people don't give you the tools.
Right.
Like if you come from a family that says you don't talk about stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and if to be a man, you especially don't talk about it.
Right.
And
Exactly.
so if you've never gotten like an uncle or a grandpa or some other male figure in your right, a role model or a mentor that told you like, no, it's okay to actually unburden yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But if you don't learn that, it takes the time until you learn it.
Yeah. And so I went through the next 10 years. The first few years, probably first 8 years, I was a really high functioning alcoholic. I could come home, get passed out drunk, wake up the next morning, take a couple of shots, and away to work I'd go. And I kept jobs. But then about 8 years out, I started losing jobs, and I ended up actually finally getting some rehab in the late 90s, and that actually gave me more tools to work with. And then I was going to AA, but the AA meeting I went to had a Army vet in it that had been sober for 21 years. He was in a wheelchair.
Mm-hmm.
And so I go into the meeting one Monday evening, I think it was, and they said, well, he fell off the wagon over the weekend and drank himself to death.
Oh, no.
And so I had already been seeing that most of these guys were hanging on to their sobriety with their white knuckles.
Yeah, everybody's kind of on the edge.
Yeah, anybody that knows exactly to the day how many days it's been 20 years later is holding on to that with nut. And so I actually was fortunate to find a kind of a not out of the mainstream book called Rational Recovery.
Mm-hmm.
And in it, it talks about how alcohol goes into your primal brain and makes itself an instinct that's just as important as food or water. And so then when you try to quit the alcohol, your primal brain's in there going, dude, you're going to die.
Yeah, it's like the safety thing,
Yeah.
It's like you got the cortisol, like, the flight or flight, like you if you feel something's going to keep you safe,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to be drawn to it. And like even mentally, there are constructs that people that are maybe very destructive, but it makes you feel safe. So you hang on to something that's toxic. Like mentally, it could be toxic, right? Physically, it could be toxic, but you might feel that it keeps you safe.
Right.
It's keeping you away from the wolf at the door. It might not be a real wolf, but it could be the virtual wolf,
Yeah, right. And so by 2001, I was at the point where I was staying sober for months at a time and just having an occasional binge weekend. And so I was able to kind of come back out of it and rebuild myself again. and I actually got a job as a traveling consultant for PeopleSoft
Cool.
in January of 2001. And so making the best money I'd ever made, you
I
know,
know where they are. Yeah.
I was living the life and, getting to travel all over the country and do what I love,
So
that
you're
kind
like
of
a
work.
road warrior. You liked it?
Yeah. Well, it was more, I'd fly out to wherever I was going and then spend the week there and then fly back home
Yeah, we
for the
kind of call
weekend.
that the road warrior because you're
Yeah.
like you're out on Sunday, you leave on Thursday, come back, you keep on
Yeah.
doing it, doing it again.
Yeah. I've got a road warrior on steroids story for you here coming up. So anyway, so I'm doing really great. September 11th happens. The planes fly into the building. That industry goes down in ashes with the buildings.
Oh, PeopleSoft had a headquarters there, or they were tied to that?
Well, no, it was that industry, the consulting industry.
Oh, that consulting industry was tied and it got hit because
right, because the economy got hit so bad and everybody was withdrawing and
air travel was probably like people didn't want to do it, so it kind of dropped down.
Yeah, and so by December I got laid off, and so I spent the next 9 months on unemployment, looking nationwide for something in that field, and there just wasn't anything.
So it dropped out, so you had to pivot.
Yeah, and so that was kind of the end of my first marriage. We'd been together over 20 years.
Oh, wow.
And but between the alcoholism, I mean, my first wife was an angel. I mean, her only flaw is when I would run out of alcohol, she would go get me more.
Oh, so kind of helping you out, like one night you're not helping you out.
No, and so she was great. She didn't deserve me. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, that marriage ended. And so after I'd sent out so many resumes and everything, I ended up having to go to work for Walmart as a cashier, because any halfway decent job, they said.
Well, any job is like, my grandpa was a coal miner and he used to say, like, all work is honorable. I mean, like, in his work is like, you get blown up. I mean, you get burned. You get mine explosions. Okay.
Right.
Like, you felt like, but he always said, like, all work is good. He was a working guy, so I get it.
Yeah. I couldn't get a mid-level job because of how much money I'd been making. I had Dish Network tell me that they weren't going to hire me because if that money came back, I'd be gone. So they didn't want to invest in me.
Oh, if they had seen that's the problem sometimes in your resume. If they see you had a high-end job,
mm-hmm.
and then they figure you're going to run to that if you can, so they don't want to
help. They were right. If it had come back, I'd been gone in a heartbeat. But anyway, so I after a few months at Walmart, I'd worked my way up to department manager, but they don't really pay their department managers anything either. Mm-hmm. And I still owned a house in our little town in Southeast Colorado that we'd never been able to sell. And so that was about the time I met Heather. And so in the fall of 2003, I moved home and moved in with her and set up shop. I kind of went crazy. Heather was 17 years younger with a 2, 4, and 8-year-old. So I kind of bought a whole new family because my first family was raised. And so anyway, fortunately I was able to land with the job at Walmart, in the little Walmart in our town. And so as a way to make extra money, I just put an ad in the paper for computer repair. Even though I'd never done it professionally, I'd been a hobbyist. I'd built my own computers. I figured I could fix other people's computers. And so, it was one of those fake it till you make it things.
Well, you learn by doing. You keep on doing it,
right?
And then eventually, 10,000 hours into it, like, oh, I got it.
Yeah. And so by 6-8 months down the road, it was making more than Walmart. So I was able to quit the Walmart. And so from about June of 2004 to present, Heather and I have been together 24/7, 365, because I've been self-employed that entire time. and we were running the computer business out of our house, and so I had been studying some tantric sex techniques, and one of the tenets is eye gazing, and eye gazing creates a deep connection between lovers, and so that Heather and I started our relationship with that, and so we developed a crazy connection from word go with that relationship, and it never really went away in the 12 years before the virus attacked my heart. We stayed in romance phase that entire time, and but the computer repair business was going along great. We're not making crazy money, but we were making a living. And then Microsoft decides to come out with Windows 7, which they claimed didn't get infected. It was 5 times less likely to get infected by virus as Windows XP. Actually, in my personal experience, it was 10 times less, because we went from working on 10 to 15 computers a week cleaning up viruses to 1 or 2 computers a week.
Yeah,
so
again,
the wolves are at the door now. And so it was about that time that I discovered Work Market and Field Nation, and they're freelance sites for computer techs and companies that need work orders done. And so I started putting out some bids and some work orders and got to doing them. And we hooked up with an outfit out of West Virginia that had the contract with AT&T, and AT&T had the contract with the USDA Farm Service Agency to provide all of its computer equipment. So they actually sent us to all 48 contiguous states over a 3-year period.
Wow, you do that work, so then you're traveling again. You're crazy.
Driving to the county seats all over the country.
Oh, you had to drive?
Yeah, that's my road warrior story on steroids.
You actually weren't flying around; you had to drive around.
No, exactly. Our big trip was, we left July 6th of 2014 in a brand new little Toyota Prius C.
Oh, wow.
Smallest Prius they make.
Yeah.
It didn't take us very long to say.
I know what that is.
It didn't take us very long to say, maybe we should have bought the little bigger Prius.
You want to be a big one, not the tiny one, especially going to be on the road. You need a little bit more room.
So being the good farmer I was, I built a 4x4 Harbor Freight Tools trailer kit and put a Sears car top carrier on it to put our luggage in. And I took Heather and her 14 and 16-year-old daughters, and we left July 6th of 2014 and drove through 35 states and did 250 offices in 31 states, 17 weeks and 25,000 miles on the road. So
a lot of driving. You must like driving.
What's that?
You must like driving.
Yeah. Well, and not only that, but what that taught Heather and I was, you learn to say I'm sorry really quickly, and you learn to say you're forgiven really quickly. When you're in a little bitty pop can that you're driving hundreds of miles a day.
You don't have any room to walk across the room or go to the other room or go downstairs.
Right.
Or go outside. You're kind of locked in.
There's nothing quite as miserable as driving hundreds of miles with somebody you're mad at.
It's not going to make it that enjoyable if you're going to stay mad the whole time. Yeah.
So that really taught us how to repair quickly, and which made our relationship stronger. You know, one of the keys to happy relationships is that you repair things quickly. You don't let them fester.
They're fester, yeah.
Yeah. And so anyway, we get back from the big trip. The girls were burnt out on the road, so they stayed home with their 18-year-old brother, and we went back out for 2 or 3 weeks in November and early December. They got home and had Christmas time off, and I got really sick. So I went into our little clinic. We're a town of 7,500, quite a ways away from any major city. So we have a hard time getting decent healthcare professionals.
Yeah, you might have a hard time getting specialists. You might have to go to big city for specialists.
Yeah, right? Yeah, right, exactly. And so the physician's assistant says, okay, Gaylen, you've got pneumonia. Here's some antibiotics. Well, I found out later that he should have taken a chest x-ray, that it's a big no-no to diagnose pneumonia without a chest x-ray. Had he done that, I likely would have not had to have a heart transplant.
Was that
But anyway, so we had another.
Did you get him for malpractice, or you just
let
it go?
I get no. It was only well after I was into it that I realized that I learned that he was supposed to have done that chest X-ray. So it was well after the fact, and I'm not the vindictive person. And so anyway, we had another 3.5 month trip planned, and we had bought a motorhome to take this trip in, and the girls were going to stay home. And I had bought an oxygen generator when he said I had the pneumonia. And so we threw that in the motorhome, and when it came time to leave, the stuff coming up out of my lungs was clear. So I thought, hey, we're good to go. And so away we went. But as I went, I just kept getting weaker and weaker and weaker till 6 weeks into the trip, I had a little 10-pound bag of tools that I'd have to carry in and set down on the counter and suck air for 2 minutes to tell them why I was there. And so we were in Corpus Christi, Texas on President's Day of 2015. And of course, the FSA offices are closed. And so we had a day off. So I said, let's go in, let's find us a clinic, walk-in clinic, and see if the pneumonia is coming back. So we went in, and they did send me for a chest X-ray. And so they called me back that afternoon and said, Mr. Wilson, you don't have pneumonia. You've got congestive heart failure. You need to get home to Colorado today. And so my bright idea was, well, we've got 6 more weeks of this trip, and we were making $300 a job and getting 3 to 4 jobs a day in.
So you wanted to get your money.
And so that was the denial talking that night, because we got it into the next day, and we had 4 jobs planned, and we got 2 jobs into it. And I said, okay, it had sunk in that I had severe heart problems.
Yeah, you want to take care of that.
So I said, okay, let's go home. And so we called our people, told them what was going on, and told them we couldn't finish. And so poor Heather, she's from a town of 300. She grew up 7 miles outside this town of 300. So big cities are not her thing.
Oh, she don't like the city. Yeah.
And so she had to drive that motorhome 1,000 miles home to Southeast Colorado by herself, because I was just too far gone.
I was wondering what was going to happen. You probably weren't going to be able to be on that kind of trip in that condition.
I think that oxygen generator that we bought at Christmas time probably saved my life. It probably got me home alive, because that's what I did, is lay back in the bed with that oxygen on all the time. We had a real long hose on it, so she did make me drag it up and sit beside her in the passenger seat as she drove through San Antonio.
But you had it. So you're using that oxygen the whole time, rest of the time coming home.
Yeah. And so we get home, go into our little triage hospital, and they say, okay, Mr. Wilson, the ambulance will be here to take you to Colorado Springs. And so we get to the Springs and into the ER, and they do some tests. And the average human heart puts out 50 to 60% out of the left chamber every time it beats. That's called the ejection fraction. And mine was putting out 5.
Oh, wow. That's pretty bad.
So I was knocking on death's door really hard.
They put you right in for the surgery? Did you go right into surgery?
No, because it wasn't a heart attack. Basically, they gave me Lasix, which is a diuretic, and they took off 22 pounds of water weight in 2 days. That's basically 3 gallons of water that was around my heart and lungs. That's why they call it congestive heart failure.
So they relieve the pressure,
Yeah. And so the doctor was telling me about it, and I said, so in other words, my heart and lungs got in a ballroom brawl in the middle of a pool.
Yeah.
He said, pretty much.
Much water.
And so I had been on a bicycling kick 3 years previous. Heather had given me a bicycle, and so I started riding it around to my customers in Lamar. It's only a town of 7,500, so it's not very far to anywhere. And so if I didn't need to bring home a computer, I'd just hop on my bike and ride. And then I ended up doing the Lamar 10-man triathlon. that summer. And so I had rode the bike like 100 miles a week for several months. And I put it away in October when the snow flew, planning on getting it out in March, and it never happened. But it got my circulatory system in such good shape that my poor little 5% heart was able to keep me alive. And so they put an internal defibrillator in me and a pacemaker and sent me home. And by summer, my ejection fraction was back up to 30. They gave me heart meds. And but then the next January, my heart started going into AFib. And that's where the top part of the heart doesn't beat in synchrony with the bottom part of the heart. So when your heart's weak and then it doesn't beat right, you're a sick man pretty quick. And so basically from there, it was just a roller coaster going downhill most of the time for the next 2.5 years. And that's when a lot of couples, the relationship crumbles because when it gets under that kind of pressure.
Yeah,
because
health issues can cause a lot of stress.
So the sick person pushes their caregiver away, or the caregiver just gets to the point that they're exhausted and say, I can't do this anymore, and leaves. We had built such an amazing connection and bond and learned to repair quickly and everything that Heather never even hinted that she wanted out. She stuck by me and nursed me all the way. And we just clung to each other more and more as the sicker I got. And so she stuck right with me right to the end. And in late May of 2018, my defibrillator went off. One night she was rubbing my legs. I hit the jackpot with Heather. She rubbed my legs her back for 23 and a half years now, every night. And so she was rubbing my legs and got shocked. And evidently I went flop. And she poked me and said, what just happened? And I said, because all I had felt was, man, I feel funky. And the next thing I know,
the thing actually went out. It actually broke. I mean, the defibrillator went out. No,
the defibrillator shocked my heart back into rhythm.
Oh, it actually did a shock, and then she felt it.
Yeah, and she felt the shock. And so I had a little mouse thing that I could hold over it and read it. So the next morning I got up and held it over it and read it and put it in the little cradle and sent it to Denver. And I called them and they said, oh yeah, that's where the term drop dead comes from. Because your heart rate had been 240 beats a minute right before that went off and shocked you back into rhythm. Had you not had that inside your body ready to go, I would have been gone. And so then the next week I went back into AFib again and had to go up and, when they're not doing the cardio version, in the movies you see the paddles and everything going clear. Well, when it's not emergency, they just put a sticker on the front and a sticker on the back and knock you out and shock you back into rhythm and then wake you back up. Wow. And so I had that done. I had the defibrillator shocked me back into rhythm. And then a week later, I had to go get shocked back into rhythm again. And it just took it out of me. I could just tell I wasn't going to be around much longer. And so I set Heather down on June 19th of 2018 at 9:00 at night and told her, honey, I'm not going to be here in 2 to 3 months. We need to finish getting ready. We'd been to the mortuary once already and had some final decisions to make. And of course, she's bawling her eyes out because I just told her that I'm dying on her. A half an hour later, we got the call there was a heart available. And so we grabbed our little to-go bag like a pregnant couple and off to Denver we went. And we were having an eastern Colorado hailstorm that night. So the first 100 miles was hail and rain. And the waterworks were still going inside the car because she had switched from crying because she was sad to crying because she was excited and scared because there was a 5% chance I'd die on that table. And so they had given us to 1:30 in the morning to get there, and we slipped in there at 1:15.
Oh, wow. You're very close. Very close.
Yeah, I don't know how fast Heather was driving that night, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't the speed limit. But anyway, So they wheeled me into the OR at 4 o'clock in the morning, and by 9 o'clock the next morning, I had a 38-year-old heart in my 61-year-old body, and
How was
it's
that
been
recovery?
amazing heart. My
How
donor
was
was
the
a
recovery for that? Like, was that a lot of work to get through the recovery?
well that's yeah there that was an interesting thing because I had been really sick in January and early February of that same year. I mean, really sick. I was near death. And I spent 16 days in the hospital. They changed my medicines around and got me kind of back. And then I think I felt like they were sending me home to die. And
Mm.
so I went home in mid-February and went to bed and binge watched Netflix for 2 months. And one day in mid-April, it was a beautiful day outside. And I sat up in bed and I said, no, damn it. I am not going to lay here and die. If I'm going to die, I'm going to get up and do something I love and die doing that. And so I'd always been a vegetable gardener. And so I took, again, I was on oxygen 24/7. So I grabbed my little oxygen bottle and out to the garden. And I had my son-in-law come over and rototill me up a big patch. And, and so I started planting that garden, and the first day it was just a couple hours, and the next day it was 3 or 4, and pretty soon I was spending 6 or 7 hours out there every day. It wasn't a lot of work. I mean, work for 5 minutes, set for 20. Work for
Well, it's good that you actually weren't just sedentary, that you got into something, keep your mind going. Because I think, like, when I was
mm-hmm,
going through cancer,
mm-hmm,
that having a positive mindset and actually doing stuff and not kind of being
mm-hmm,
down in the dumps, I think helps you with recovery. Because if you put yourself, you get
mm-hmm.
something that you're
Well, that's it. By out there and doing that, right? Yeah, because by getting out there and doing that, I was actually off the oxygen completely in 2 weeks,
mhm.
to where I didn't have to wear it even at night because I'd been out there, got the body working again.
Yeah, really. Yeah, yeah.
And so, well, so that was mid-April. So by the time mid-June came around, I had worked my way into as about the best shape I could have been in with my heart as bad as it was. And so when they dropped that new engine in me, I tell people they dropped a Ferrari engine into this old Ford pickup.
Yeah, yeah.
And so as soon as they dropped that new engine in, I was off to the races. I walked 5 miles around the unit 9 days after transplant. So they were
That's positive. That's
they
a
were
cool
just
thing to do.
yeah, they were flabbergasted. They were actually going to release me 9 days after, but they did a biopsy and I had some rejection, so they kept me in a week and gave me steroids, and still had a rejection, so they kept me in. I spent 22 days in the hospital, but that last 14 days I was probably the most healthiest person in the hospital.
You got through all the rejection and finally accepted.
Yeah, after the third week, they tested and there wasn't any rejection, and I haven't had any in the 8 years since. So,
That's cool. I think it's
yeah,
really cool that you had such a positive mindset, and it had to have
mm-hmm,
been because of what you had been reading or where you were in your relationship in your life, where you were in a positive phase,
mm-hmm,
right? In terms of you had support,
yeah,
you had a good mindset.
mm-hmm,
You seem to be like we're in a good place, like mentally and
yeah.
spiritually. It seems
Well,
like
yeah,
you're in
and
a great place.
that's it. Our relationship wasn't another battlefield. To, the illness was already enough of a battlefield. Our relationship never became that battlefield,
Yeah,
and
that's important.
which I think I'm really really fortunate, because from what I've learned since, there's a lot of couples never make it through that. Uh,
Oh, it's very hard,
yeah.
because my pop, he passed from Alzheimer's, and it was very hard.
Hmm.
Um, and my mom stuck with him, but it was like it kind of took a lot out of her.
Right.
You know,
Right.
like even though I mean she stick a bit, it kind of like it just like it kind of really pulled a lot. It's a lot
Hmm.
of work when you have debilitating illnesses, like, and that was one where there wasn't anything coming back. It was actually going. There wasn't a recovery coming out of that. So
Right. Right.
that's kind of hard. But
So
you know,
once I got the transplant, you know, I they'd given me another 20 plus years with my soulmate. And
wow,
not only, that's the blessing in one, but the fact that I get along with her, that I actually still feel like I wake up in the morning and say, how do I love this woman more today than I did yesterday after 23 and a half years?
Well, that's a rare thing because, with the divorce rates, like most people don't, like half the people don't find that.
Right.
And even the other half that have it maybe don't have what you have.
Right.
They might just stay together just because they think they should, but they're not actually having a good time.
Yeah. And I'm about to teach you how to have a relationship like ours. So, I had this burning need to pay this blessing forward. And so about 3 years after the transplant, my erectile dysfunction was getting worse. I was getting 65-ish. I had developed ED clear back at 44, 2 years before I ever met Heather. And fortunately, Viagra was my miracle. And so it let us have a completely full sex life. We just had to plan sex. So we just planned sex often.
Yeah, and that's kind of hard because some people have a hard time with the planning because it kind of takes the spontaneity out of it. And then sometimes it just ends up not working because you want it to happen naturally. And if you have to plan it, it feels like forced. But I mean, if you can get it to work, that's cool. But some people have trouble with that.
Yeah, well, and really that's another product of our society, because our society has told us the only valid desire is that spontaneous flaming desire. And actually I went through a period where my testosterone finally tanked in when I was 65 and went below 200, and I kept our sex life alive with what's known as reactive desire. That's where you remember how nice it is, so you instigate it, and then it becomes nice.
Yeah.
The desire kicks in afterwards. And so anyway, I was up to 300 milligrams of Viagra, which is like 3 times the dose Pfizer says you're supposed to take.
Yeah, and eventually it starts to not work and you gotta take too much. Yeah.
Right. That was all approved by I've got one thing cool about it being a heart transplant patient is you get to talk to all the best doctors in the hospital. And so my spine doctor is a professor at the University of Colorado, and my ED guy is the guru of ED. And so he had me up to 300, and that worked for, 6-8 months. But then it got to the point where I was trying to make love a couple of times a week and failing half the time. And so I said, okay, I've always been of the mind you aggressively treat your ED, because sex is so important to a relationship. And so I went and joined 2 Facebook groups for erectile dysfunction discussion. And I got so involved with, first of all, I found my fix. It was shockwave therapy. You can buy a little machine that it makes sound waves that penetrate the penis and rebuild the vessels and valves in the penis. It was miraculous for me. And so I got to pushing that in the group, telling all the guys how the success I had. And I got so involved that the guy that had formed the bigger group 8 years previous, he was ready to step away. He'd had enough, and he just gave me that group. And then 3 months later, I got made administrator of the second group. So I've administrated those groups for 5 years now, and over 5 years. And so I grew the smaller group from 3,500 when I took it over to over 55,000. And so it's blossomed. But one of the big frustrations when doing that was when these women would come to the group, and it was hundreds of women over the 5 years that would come into the group. Their man had developed ED and refused to go to the doctor and do anything about it. And so the way, I don't know whether embarrassment or what it was for sure, but he had cut her off completely from any affection, no touching, no kissing, no emotional support. He basically abandoned her right in the marriage. And these women, some of them had been with him for 5 and 10 years after that. And they stayed because they they said they still loved their husband, and they were hoping that the man that they married would eventually come back to them.
Mm-hmm.
And so all I could do, it was so frustrating because all I could do was empathize with him. I really had no answer for how to get him to come back. And so I originally thought it was a character flaw. Oh, these guys must be cowards.
Mm-hmm.
But as I learned what I've learned, and I'm about to teach you that, but as I've learned, I found out that what he was really doing, you remember we talked about the primal brain and the instincts and everything.
Mm-hmm.
When he lost that first erection, his primal brain told him, dude, you're going to lose your woman. And so with me, when I lost that first erection, I was at the doctor the next week. I want that new little blue pill, please.
Yeah.
These men had gone into flight and had
They were running away from it. They're hiding.
They were running away from it. And so anyway, at that point, I didn't know that. All I saw was a character flaw. They're cowards. And so I got Heather and I into a course to become certified thriving relationship coaches, just to try to figure out crack that nut. Excuse the pun.
Yeah, get how to reach these guys.
Yeah. And so the very first book we read was Hold Me Tight by Dr. Sue Johnson. And in it, she talked about attachment theory. And her attachment theory is that we were bred through thousands of years of prehistoric evolution to have an instinct for a strong attachment to our mate. And so the people that didn't have it back then didn't survive, and their offspring didn't survive. And so it got brought forward into modern man as an instinct that's just as strong as the need for food and need for water. So here we are back at the primal brain again that I learned about back in the Rational Recovery book. And so she talked about how the fact that most of the fights we get in are not about what we're fighting about, but it's about the fact that attachment instinct has detected a threat to the attachment and has thrown the person into fight or flight mode. And so when you get both people in fight or flight mode, the logical brain leaves the building and leaves the lizard brains, I call it, in control. Mm-hmm. And so the lizard brains say things that aren't true, say things that aren't meant, and things that are really hard to take back afterwards. And so if your couple gets into the cycle of being both of them going into fight or flight all the time, eventually that creates damage to the nervous system safety. And I always have said that there's no desire without emotional system safety. Mm-hmm. And so as this couple keep at it over days and weeks and months and years, they start doing more and more damage to their emotional system safety, to where they don't feel their emotional, they may still love each other, but their emotional system safety is completely gone.
Well, like no trust. Like if there's no trust, like with like that kind of primal trust to have that attachment,
exactly.
If you've detached yourself like so damaged in that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you can't. If there's a toxicity there, mm-hmm. and you might just stay in the relationship for like just how it looks, and you might mm-hmm. not be the kind of person that says, "Well, no, if this ain't working," somebody say, "Well, I'm off to the lawyer."
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
A lot of folks are just like, I'm out. Right?
Well, and we go back to that. I had figured out why women in battered women syndromes situations stay with their man, is because of that instinct. The instinct is to protect the bond, mm-hmm. and so that instinct drives them to stay with these men that logically they know are bad guys, but that instinct keeps driving. And I think I've actually written The Turn and the Break. They're domestic violence crisis guides, really short reads that use the monument method to try to teach the man and woman how to not get to the point that he's so angry he beats her. Mm-hmm. And so I really think that once just like when I realized that alcohol was driving me, was telling me you're going to die, boy, and I mm-hmm. could use my logical brain to overrule that. I think these women, if they understand that's what's going on, are going to have an easier time leaving.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah, man, there's some folks that they I don't know if it's like where they are in their life. I mean, sometimes there's like not everybody's gonna be on the same like path from a sequential standpoint. Right? Sometimes people get to that crucible moment. You don't know. Some person could get it in like 2 months into the relationship. They see somebody's like doing DYIs, DUIs, and they put their hands on them. They're out of there in like 3 months. Another person might take 10 years.
Right. Exactly.
It may take 15 years. Right.
Yeah.
You never know because it's like it depends on where they are.
Right. And so anyway, the nervous system's taking up damage. Pretty soon you've got a dead bedroom situation. and so Heather and I, we've always had this amazing relationship, but we fight. I mean, human beings, we seem to be wired to fight. And so I got to working with her and I says, okay, how do we stop triggering each other's attachment instinct that's causing these fights? And so the first thing we did was we thought, well, we need to watch what tone we talk to each other in, because sometimes you talk to your loved one like they're the worst person on the planet. And you get away with it because they love you, but really you're not getting away with it because you're triggering that fight or flight in them. And so Heather and I believe we're building this big, beautiful marble monument to our relationship. And every kind word or loving gesture, or especially when you make love with presence, you're building onto that monument. But each cruel word or cold shoulder or fight you get into is like taking a hammer and chisel to your monument.
Yeah, it's like wrecking and whatever you built.
Yeah. And so we came up with the idea, well, we need to fiercely protect our monument. That's the Monument Method Institute motto, is fiercely protect the monument.
Yeah. That's it. You figured out how to create a logo.
Yeah. And you'll see the swords are on either side of the monument there.
Yeah.
So it's protecting the monument from themselves here. And so you need to make your monument more important than your ego and more important than being right in a fight.
Yeah. It's kind of like, well, I think the problem is that people try to win the argument, right? And then also all human beings have a filter, right? So as soon as you hear something, your brain attaches to that and it goes right to what it expects that to mean. But the hard thing is to stop and say, what did you really mean by that?
Yeah,
most people don't do that. Most people don't.
That's because it's impossible when the lizard brains are in control. You cannot communicate your way out of that. The logical brain has left the building. And so we needed to make our monument more important than our egos, more important than winning a fight, because nobody wins those fights anyway. You might win the argument, but you lose the war.
Yeah.
And so I got to thinking, okay, the tone stuff helped. I mean, we weren't at each other as much, but we were still getting into the fights. She's 17 years younger than me. We've got the whole generational thing going, and we're both kind of fiery personalities. And so I said, how do we stop from getting into fight or flight to start with? And so I thought about it, and I came up with the idea. We gave each other a sacred word, and ours is monument. And so anytime either one of us sees the other one heading towards the monument with the hammer and chisel, the other one can call monument. First of all, to remind each other that our monument's more important than the fight we're about to get into. But also, I called it a sacred word because we made a sacred vow that no matter how angry we are, if one of us calls monument, that's the end of the fight. And so, but once you call monument, you can't just separate and go cool down, because you come back and you're still going to be right back into fight or flight.
Right back to it,
yeah, you go right back to it. And so the amazing discovery we made is when one of us calls monument, we turn towards each other, we come together, embrace each other's arms, and gaze lovingly into each other's eyes. and patch that little spot on the monument that we just chipped out. And the science behind that is that when you gaze into your lover's eyes, it's one of the most powerful ways to go into that primal brain and say, hey, your attachment is safe. You can stand down. And boom, the nervous system.
I think it sounds, I would think some people might have a hard time with that, because that is actually being very vulnerable.
It is.
It's reducing your ego and your id, and some folks might have a hard time actually doing that.
Yeah, yes, we've been through that whole gambit. There's times when it's really hard to monument each other because you're so upset. But yeah, dagger eyes do not work in this situation.
Yeah,
they got to be
a lot of passion. There's a lot of heat there. It might be hard. Like you might have this concept, but like if you're in the heat of it, can you I guess it's like it's kind of being very evolved.
Right.
To do what you're saying is to get to a higher level, and push down all the ego and all the other stuff, which is like not always the easiest thing to do.
Yeah. And so here's the reward of doing this. So first of all, when you do that, it calms you right down out of fight or flight. The logical brain can re-enter the building and you can have a logical discussion. Now you can communicate what you were getting ready to have a big fight about.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but the really reward is that when you start to practice it, and it does take practice. I've said we are wired to fight. And so it's not perfect to start with, but as you start practicing it, you fight less and less and less. And even the big ones that you used to be mad at each other for a day and a half for are over in 5 minutes because one of you is coming back to the other one and monumenting and repairing the damage before it can fester. And so as you do that, all those nervous system damages from the years start to heal. And so your nervous system starts feeling safer and safer and safer with your partner. And remember what I said, there's no desire without nervous system safety. So when your nervous system starts feeling safe with each other, your desire can blossom.
You're not going to have that anxiety. Like I think the problem is people get this anxiety, the kind of hyperactivity. Mm-hmm. They don't feel at peace, right? So if you're not at peace, right, because I'm a Buddhist, but like there's a lot of ideas with energy, right? Mm-hmm. And if you're going into negativity, you're going to breed negativity called law of attraction, right? Yeah. So if you get into a space where you have a really good frequency, it's it's like I'm a musician, so you have harmonies, you have disharmony, you have distortion, you have noise. Mm-hmm. If you're in the noise, nothing good's going to happen. If you're in the distortion, probably nothing good's going to happen. When you get closer to the harmony, to the frequency being in tune, being harmony and tune in the key, like the choir, then it's going to
Yeah. And so I had actually written the Monument Method book last fall. Heather and I had been practicing it for a couple of years before I came up with the idea, hey, we need to write a book about this. and so I'd written the book, and one day back in December, I was working on one of our vehicles, and I'm a pretty decent mechanic. I mean, when I was a farmer, I overhauled a tractor engine. So but these new cars are a pain. I mean,
so electronics probably harder to figure out.
Mm-hmm. And so I had spent and I'm bulldog when I get a hold of things. So I had spent 2 months working on this thing and got it running. And so I drove it around the block, pulled it into the driveway. I'm so happy. Heather wants to go visit friends. We've made best friends with the man who got his heart 17 days after I got mine. Mm-hmm. And his wife and Heather have trauma bonded over having heart transplant husbands and are closer than sisters. Mm-hmm. And so she wanted to go visit them. They live about 200 miles away. And so we get it, load the car up and get in, and I push the button. Nothing. It's dead.
Watching the car.
Smoke starts coming out my ears because I just worked on this car for 2 months. And so I'm immediately upset. I get my multimeter and I check the battery, and it's at 8 volts, which is supposed to be like 12 and a half. And so I my bright idea is I'll pull the other car up over the lawn and get it close enough to jump start it. And so I did that, and I popped the trunk, and I went around to the back of the car to get the jumper cables that I knew were there, only I couldn't find them because I was too dysregulated to move the freaking blanket.
Oh, you were just there, but you didn't see it.
Yeah, they were under a blanket. Yeah. And so I knew that there was another set in the garage that I bought like 40 years ago. And that's how you can tell you're getting old, when you can talk about something you bought 40 years ago.
Yeah.
And so I go get them. I'm carrying them out, and I evidently had left them in the weather a few times over the years, and they were all rusty and nasty. And I'm going, oh no, these aren't going to conduct any electricity. And sure enough, I click them on the other car and click the other end together to see if I get a spark, and there's just nothing. So I'm gone now. I grab them off there, hold them up over my head, and throw them on the concrete and scream. Heather's in the car with the hood up, so she doesn't see this, and the windows are up, so she doesn't hear it. So she has zero clue that her husband's spinning out of control right in front of her. And so I knew there was another set of jumper cables in the garage, and you'd have to see my garage to understand that challenge. But anyway, so went in and I found them. I came back out and got it all hooked up. And so I'm gone by now. I'm just so upset. And I walk around to the driver's side of the car, and picture this. I open the door, and there's this 69-year-old man crawling in on his hands and knees on the driver's seat. And I get like 8 inches from Heather's face and say, I need a monument. Mm-hmm. And the second our eyes met, that anger just went gone. I mean, it didn't lower, it was gone. And so I was shocked. I said, okay, you have my permission. Anytime you see me upset, you can come monument me.
Yeah.
We're calling this the sanctuary bond. And as I got to writing the Monument Method 2, the sanctuary bond book, I got to figuring out that what had happened is Heather and I had been teaching our bodies for 2 years that eye gazing meant for the new nervous system to stand down. And even though we were in a situation where she wasn't angry and I was, our bodies had been trained. Eye gaze, stand down.
You got to regulate. Yeah. I think that's. I mean, we've been talking for almost the last hour, and I think that you've conveyed like a lifelong story to where you got to, where you were able to find this method through like just a lifetime of experience,
right?
And then finding something with a partner that you could have that trust relationship, you could have that conversation, and then practice this and put it into the 2 books, right? So there's both of those are up there. I just want to let people know we got the QR code for your website. The Monument Method Institute.com. So if people actually take the QR code on their phone, if they go to that website, what do they find there? A way to get the 2 books?
Yeah, actually, there's links to my Amazon. I've got them all on Amazon. We've actually got 18 romance novels that we've written, so they show the Monument Method in a love story.
Oh, cool.
So they're not your typical, vampire and werewolf.
So that's where they can get your literature. They take the QR code and they go there, it'll bring it to the website. You can get it.
Yeah. And tell them to check out the MVP. That's my Monument Validated Person dating site. I've written a 4-book Ready series that prepare older adults and younger adults for the dating market. That's crazy. And so we're going to change dating culture.
Oh, so you have a way to get into that. So that's cool.
Yeah. So they had to have read one of the books and pass a quiz to get in. I'm making it free as part of my pay it forward. It's free forever. I'm also right now giving away all 4 books. If they go to the MVP site, they can scroll to the bottom and download EPUBs or PDFs, whichever they prefer. The EPUBs can be imported into Kindle.
Yeah, I think that's a cool thing. Yeah, because a lot of people do that. Do you have audio versions of any of these?
Not yet. Audio version book costs about $5,000.
Oh, get it done.
And we are just in startup phase here
at
the Monument Method Institute. So, So anyway, at Monument Method Institute on most social media, at Monument Method on TikTok. Please come like us and they're kind of a ghost town yet, but like us and give us some love and let us help our
Yeah,
our
we're
social
going to have
media.
all your social media links on our podcast description. We've been live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Kick. We will be on most of the podcast platforms that people are familiar with, like Spotify, Video Podcast, iHeartRadio, Amazon, Facebook, and Newsly. I want to thank you for being on the Fam Like the Ghost podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you very much.